My name is Marcus. And I'll tell you right now, I didn't see any of this coming. 3 months in this apartment. 3rd floor, unit 6, corner unit, so the light came in from 2 sides in the morning. That part one liked. The rest of it was fine, manageable, which is the word you use for a place when you're trying not to complain about it. The building was old, but it didn't feel neglected. Hallways mopped. Fixtures working. The kind of maintained that told you someone was paying attention somewhere. I noticed that when I moved in, and I filed it away without knowing why. Joel had been over since 6. We'd eaten, watched something neither of us cared about, and migrated to the kitchen counter the way people do when the night starts winding down, but nobody said it yet.
You got the rent handled or what?
Yeah, I'm working on it.
That's not the same as handled.
It'll be handled. Joel set his bottle down on the counter and looked at me the way he does when he's deciding whether to push.
I'm just saying, I heard she runs a tight ship. The landlady. Somebody in my building knows somebody who rented from her before. Said she doesn't do grace periods.
I appreciate the research.
I'm serious, man.
So am I. I'll handle it. Joel put his hands up and let it go. That was the thing about Joel. He'd say the thing once, maybe twice, and then he'd leave it with you. That was why I kept him around.
All right. I'm out. Early morning.
Yeah, thanks for coming through.
Don't get evicted.
Go home, Joel. He laughed on his way to the door. I heard it close behind him, and then the apartment was just mine again. The low hum of the refrigerator, the city doing its thing outside the window, a car passing every couple of minutes. I picked up my phone from the counter, opened the banking app, looked at the number, put the phone face down without closing the app, and left it there. The overhead light in the kitchen was slightly too bright for that time of night. I turned on the lamp in the corner instead, and the whole room settled into something easier. I stood at the window for a while. The street below had that particular quiet it gets after 10, not empty, just slower. A woman walking a dog. 2 guys outside the corner store. The light changing at an intersection nobody was waiting at. I moved away from the window, poured water, drank half of it, set the glass in the sink. The microwave clock read 10:47. I wasn't expecting anyone. The knock came like it had always been scheduled. 3 times, even spaced, unhurried. Not the kind of knock that's asking whether you're home. The kind that already knows. I didn't move right away. I stood in the kitchen and looked toward the door and registered that it was late, that Joel had just left, that nobody else had a reason to be at my door on a Tuesday night at 10:47. 3 knocks. Even. Certain. I set the glass upright in the sink instead of leaving it on its side. Small thing. I don't know why I did it. Then I went to the door. The hallway outside my door had one bulb. Warm, slightly orange, the kind of light that made everything look like a photograph taken a long time ago. She was standing in it. No clipboard. No folder. No phone in her hand. Just her, standing with the particular stillness of someone who had nowhere else to be and had decided not to pretend otherwise. The robe was dark, cinched at the waist. The kind you wear when you haven't left your building, but you've still made a choice about how you move through it. Her hair was down. Her hands were at her sides. She didn't look impatient. That was the first thing I noticed. It was almost 11 at night, and she didn't look impatient.
First of the month was 2 days ago.
I know.
I don't usually come in person for the first conversation.
I appreciate that you did. She looked at me, not searching, more like confirming something she'd already half formed.
So where are we?
I can give you 1100 tonight. The rest by Friday. That's 4 days. I know that's not what the lease says, but I'm not going to disappear on you. I have a client invoice that cleared this afternoon, and I'll have it in full by end of week. She didn't respond right away. She looked at me the way someone looks at a contract they're reading for the second time. Not suspicious, just careful.
The invoice cleared today.
This afternoon. 3:40.
But you don't have the full amount on you tonight.
Not the full amount. No. She nodded slowly. Once. Not agreeing, processing.
Can I come in?
I didn't say yes right away. Not because I was going to say no. I just didn't say it immediately. She noticed. I could tell by the way she didn't fill the silence. She let it sit there and waited for me to do something with it. I stepped back from the door. She moved through it the way she'd stood in the hallway. Unhurried. No performance in it. She came into the apartment, and she didn't stop in the entryway the way most people do. She walked into the space itself, a few steps past the threshold, and she looked around. Not inspecting it. Not checking the condition of the walls or the fixtures. Something else. She looked at the lamp I'd turned on in the corner. The glass in the sink. The phone face down on the counter. The jacket I'd left on the back of the chair 2 days ago and hadn't moved. She was reading something. I didn't know what. The door was still open behind her. The hallway light coming in from outside made a thin rectangle on the floor.
You've kept it well.
It's a good apartment.
Most people don't bother. Third floor corner gets the afternoon heat in summer. Half of them complain. Other half put up blackout curtains and ruin the light.
I leave the windows open.
I know. I can hear it sometimes. The way sound moves through the building.
She turned to look at me then, and I became aware, for the first time since I'd opened the door, of how small the apartment actually was. How few steps there were between where she was standing and where I was. She reached behind her without looking. The door closed with her foot. One clean movement. She didn't break eye contact doing it. The hallway light disappeared. Just the lamp in the corner. Just the two of us. And the particular quality of quiet that shows up in a room when something in it has just changed. Something about a room changes when the door closes. Same furniture. Same light. Same two people. But the proportions shift in a way that has nothing to do with square footage. Diana moved to the kitchen counter and leaned against it. Not sitting, her hands resting behind her on the edge, weight shifted back. Comfortable in a space that wasn't hers. That kind of comfort isn't something you perform. Either you have it or you don't. The lamp in the corner put most of the light on the right side of the room. Where she was standing was warm. Where I was standing was slightly less so. I didn't move toward the counter. I stayed where I was, near the middle of the room, and we looked at each other across it.
What do you do? For work.
Graphic design. Freelance.
How long?
3 years out on my own. Before that I was at an agency downtown.
Why'd you leave?
They wanted me to stop having opinions about the work. She looked at me. Something shifted slightly in her expression. Not a smile. Not yet. Just a small adjustment. Like she clocked something.
And the client who went quiet, is that a pattern or an exception?
Exception. He got nervous about the budget on his end. It's sorted now. Invoice cleared today, like I said.
I'm not asking to audit you.
I know. I'm telling you because it's relevant.
Fair enough.
She was quiet for a moment. She looked at the counter beside her hand, then back at me. When she spoke again, her voice had dropped slightly. Not dramatic, just lower. The way a conversation drops when it moves from the surface to something underneath.
There's a way we could handle the gap that doesn't go into the ledger. Keep it simple. Between us.
The room was very still. What does that mean exactly? She didn't answer. She looked at me instead, direct, unhurried, the silence doing the work her words had left open. It lasted long enough that I understood she wasn't going to fill it. She was waiting to see what I did with it. I'm asking because I want to know what you're offering. Not because I didn't hear you.
I know why you're asking.
Then answer it. She held my gaze for another moment. Then she pushed off the counter. Not toward me. Not directly. Just away from it. And in the process the distance between us closed by half without either of us appearing to have decided on it. She stopped. Her robe's tie had worked itself slightly loose at the waist. A small gap where the fabric fell open. She didn't look down at it. She didn't reach for it. I didn't look away from her face.
Marcus.
First time she'd used my name. It landed differently than I expected.
Are you someone who can be flexible when a situation calls for it?
I let the question sit for a second. Not because I didn't have an answer, because the question deserved the weight of a second before I gave it one. Depends on what's being asked of me. She looked at me, then the way you look at something you've been considering from a distance, and have finally decided to approach. The gap in the robe. Her hands loose at her sides. The lamp behind me putting light on her face. She almost smiled. Not quite. Just the beginning of one. The corner of it. Held back by something that wasn't reluctance. More like precision. Like she knew exactly where this was, and had decided to move toward it at exactly the pace she chose. Neither of us spoke. The building made a sound somewhere below us. Pipes, or a door, or just the weight of an old structure settling into the night. Neither of us moved. Neither of us had moved in a long time. That's not an exaggeration. The room had gone to a particular kind of still where even small sounds registered. The refrigerator cycling, something outside on the street, the low tick of the lamp's bulb doing its work in the corner. Her hands were at her sides. The robe's tie had come fully loose now. Not open, just no longer held. Resting. The fabric draped in a way that was neither deliberate nor accidental. Just physics and gravity and the fact that she hadn't fixed it. I was watching her face. She was watching mine. The distance between us was not large.
You said it depends on what's being asked.
That's what I said.
I'm going to ask.
All right. She moved. Not fast. There was no urgency in it. No lunge, no performance. She crossed the remaining distance the way someone walks towards something they've already decided on and are now simply arriving at. Each step even. Her eyes not leaving mine. Both her hands came up and took hold of my arms. Just above the elbow, fingers wrapping around without gripping. The way you hold something you're not trying to restrain. Just place. She pressed me back against the wall behind me. One steady movement. The plaster was cool through my shirt and her hands were warm through my sleeves, and both of those things registered at the same time with the same clarity. The robe felt open at the waist. She didn't look down.
We can work something out.
Her voice had dropped to something low and deliberate. Not a whisper, something with more weight than that. The kind of voice that doesn't need volume because it's already inside the room, already inside the distance between two people.
If you're willing.
I looked at her. Her face. Her hands on my arms. The robe open, the fabric falling on both sides. The warmth of her coming through the gap. What exactly are you offering?
I think you know.
Maybe I want to hear you say it. Something moved across her face. Not surprise. More like recognition. Like she'd taken a step and found the ground exactly where she expected it, which told her something about the ground and something about her own footing. She moved against me. Slow, deliberate, her body closing the last distance that had remained between us. Her hips, the warmth of her through the thin fabric, her hands still holding my arms against the wall, the full weight of her intention made physical and present and impossible to misread. Her mouth was close to my jaw, not touching, just close enough that the warmth of it registered.
1 month. Forgotten. No record. No conversation after tonight. That's what I'm offering.
I could feel her breathing, the slight rise and fall of it against my chest. My hands, which had been at my sides from the moment she'd crossed the room, moved. My right hand found her waist, the gap in the robe where the fabric had fallen open. My fingers settled there, not pulling, not pressing, just present. The warmth of her skin against my palm. I held the edge of it, the fabric and the edge of what was underneath. She went still, not pulling back, just stopping, the way something stops when it's arrived. The pressure of her hands on my arms eased fractionally, still holding, but changed. Her fingers adjusted their grip without releasing it. Her breath came out slow. Mine did too. The lamp in the corner. The refrigerator's low hum. The city somewhere below us, doing its indifferent thing, knowing nothing about this room or the two people standing in it against a wall with everything between them shifted and nothing yet named. She looked at me. I looked back. Nobody moved. Later, the lamp in the corner was still on. The microwave clock read 12:31. The room was the same room it had always been. Same walls, same furniture, same glass still upright in the sink, but it held itself differently now. The way a space holds itself differently after something real has happened inside it. Diana was on the couch, robe retied, loosely, her hair slightly less composed than it had been at the door, not undone, just lived in. The kind of detail you notice and then notice yourself noticing. I'd gotten her water without being asked, just saw that she needed it and got it. She'd taken the glass without comment, which told me she was used to reading a room and being read in return. I was in the chair across from her. Not the couch. The chair. The distance was deliberate on both our parts, and neither of us mentioned it. She drank. Set the glass on the side table. Looked at the lamp.
The bulb in that corner is going to go soon. The flicker is starting.
I noticed it last week.
I'll have someone bring one up.
I can get it.
It's easier if I...
Diana, I can get a light bulb. She looked at me. Then she nodded. Let it go. Quiet settled back in. not uncomfortable. The kind of quiet that exists between two people who have run out of the need to fill it.
The building next door sold last spring. New owner gutted the whole thing, took out the original molding, the tile work in the lobby. 40-year-old craftsmanship. Gone in a week.
That's the one with the green awning?
Was. They changed that too.
Why are you telling me this?
I don't know. I think about it sometimes. What gets kept and what gets replaced because it's easier.
She wasn't looking at the lamp anymore. She was looking at the middle distance, the particular nowhere that people look at when they're not talking to you. They're talking to something in themselves. How long ago was the divorce? She came back into the room, looked at me.
For years. Why?
You mentioned the ex-husband, the one who called the buildings a vanity project.
I didn't mention him tonight.
No, but you mentioned him just now. She held the glass without drinking from it.
3 years married. For since. The buildings were mine going in, I kept them coming out. He didn't fight it. I think he was relieved to have a clean reason for why things didn't work.
What was the real reason?
He wanted someone simpler. I kept making myself more complicated. Couldn't seem to stop.
I didn't offer anything to that. No reassurance, no counter. She hadn't asked for either. What made you hold on to them? The buildings. You could have sold and started with a clean number. She looked at me the way someone looks at a question they weren't expecting to be a real one.
Because they were mine. Because I'd maintained them myself and I knew every wall in them, and starting over empty-handed has a sound to it I didn't want to hear.
She stopped, like she'd said more than she planned.
What about you? Why this city? Why alone?
I needed to find out if I could do it. The work. The city. By myself.
And?
Still finding out. She almost smiled at that. Not the controlled, almost smile from before. This one was quieter. Less precise. More actual. She stood to leave. Smoothed the robe. Picked up nothing because she'd brought nothing. At the door she paused with her hand on the frame and said the partial was fine. The rest by end of week. Said it the way you say something you've already decided doesn't matter. Then she looked back at me. One look. Long enough to hold everything the conversation hadn't said. She left. I stood in the quiet apartment and looked at the couch where she'd been sitting. The slight impression in the cushion. The glass of water with 1 inch left in it. I didn't move toward any of it. The lamp flickered once. Then held. 2 days passed. I worked. Sent a follow-up to a client. Ate something that wasn't remarkable. Slept without difficulty, which surprised me less than it probably should have. I was coming back from the corner store on Thursday morning when I saw her in the lobby. Older woman. Late 50s. Good posture, grocery bags in both hands. The particular energy of someone who had lived in this building long enough to consider it an extension of herself. She looked at me the way people look at someone they already know something about.
You're the one in 6.
That's me.
Carol. 4th floor. I've seen you in the elevator.
Marcus.
I know.
She shifted one of the bags to her other hand and looked at me with an openness that was also, underneath, a kind of inventory.
I saw Diana leaving your floor the other night. Late.
She came by about the rent. That sound. The particular that isn't agreement and isn't question and isn't anything you can push back against because it hasn't committed to being a thing yet. I'd heard that sound before from women who had known each other longer than I'd been alive.
She doesn't usually do that in person. The rent.
I got that impression.
She has a system. Direct deposit, automated reminders, the whole thing. Her ex-husband set it up before he left and she kept it because it worked even though she'd never admit that part.
I'll keep that between us. Carol looked at me steadily. Not unkind. Just looking.
Diana's been through a lot. In the last few years. She doesn't always, she keeps things close. Doesn't ask for help with the parts that are actually hard.
I understand.
I'm not sure you do yet. But I think you might be the kind of person who could.
She said it without drama. Picked up her bags again. Nodded once.
Nice to meet you, Marcus.
You too, Carol. She took the elevator. I took the stairs. That afternoon, I went up to the 4th floor and knocked. Diana answered after a moment. She was dressed. Not for outside, but put together. She looked at me and her face moved through something quickly and landed on composed.
Marcus.
I have the rest of the rent. I held out the envelope. She took it, looked at it.
You could have slid it under the door.
I know.
Or the drop box in the lobby.
I know that too. She held the envelope, didn't move back from the door, and didn't open it further. I ran into Carol this morning. Something tightened in Diana's face. Controlled, barely visible, but there.
She was in the lobby?
Groceries. She introduced herself.
She would.
She didn't say anything that wasn't kind.
Carol's always kind. That's not the same as Carol staying out of things.
I'm not asking about Carol. I'm asking how you are. With what happened. She looked at the envelope in her hands. The hallway between us was narrow. The door to her apartment was open just enough to show warm light inside. Something on the stove, something that smelled like it had been cooking for a while.
It was a moment of poor judgment on my part. I think we should leave it at that.
I don't believe you. The words landed in the space between us and stayed there. She didn't argue, didn't redirect. She looked at me with the envelope still in both hands and something behind her eyes that wasn't composure. It was the effort of composure, which is a completely different thing. I'm not trying to make this complicated.
It already is.
That's not an answer to what I asked. She held his gaze, said nothing. I left. I was 6 steps down the hallway when I registered the sound, or the absence of it. Her door hadn't closed. I didn't turn around, but I heard it stay open all the way to the stairwell. The warm light from inside her apartment falling out into the hall, reaching as far as it could reach, stopping just short of where I was walking. 3 days. I worked. I delivered the project that had been late, and the client responded well, and I sat with that for a minute before closing the laptop. I cooked twice, which was more than usual. I went for a walk the second night and the third night, and on the third night I stayed out longer than I meant to because the city was doing something right with the air and the light, and I wasn't ready to be inside yet. When I got back, there was a note under my door. Just my name on the outside. Handwriting I didn't recognize yet, but recognized as careful, the kind of careful that comes from deciding to write something twice and sending the second version. Inside, one line. If you'd like to come up for dinner sometime this week, you're welcome. D. No time. No date. Sometime this week. The opening left deliberately wide, which told me she'd thought about how much space to give it. I went up the following evening. She answered the door in something simple, dark, fitted, nothing that announced itself. Her hair was down the way it had been the night she'd knocked on mine. The apartment was warm. Something on the stove that had been going long enough to make the whole space smell like a decision had been made in it hours ago.
You came.
You asked.
I wasn't sure you would.
I wasn't sure you'd mean it when you did. She held the door open. I came in. Her apartment was the same building as mine, but a different world. 4 floors up, larger, the accumulated weight of someone who had lived deliberately in a space for a long time. Books on actual shelves. A plant on the windowsill that was alive and had been for years. A photograph on the wall I didn't ask about yet. We ate. She'd cooked something real, not to impress, just competently. The way someone cooks when feeding another person is a normal thing they do and not a performance. We talked about the city, about a building 2 streets over going up too fast, about a documentary she'd watched that she had opinions about. The conversation moved the way good conversation moves, not toward anything, just forward. At some point, she set her glass down and looked at the table, and when she looked back up, the ease in her face had shifted into something more deliberate.
I owe you an honest answer to what you asked at my door.
You don't owe me anything.
I know I don't. That's not why I'm giving it.
She folded her hands on the table, not nervous, grounding herself. There's a difference.
It wasn't poor judgment. I knew what I was doing when I closed that door. I knew before I knocked. I'd been aware of you for longer than I'm comfortable admitting, and that night I stopped pretending I wasn't.
Why'd you call it poor judgment then?
Because the other option was calling it what it actually was, and I wasn't ready for what came after that.
What comes after that?
This. Sitting here. Having said it.
The room held that for a moment. Something on the stove had been turned off, and the quiet of the apartment was full and warm around us. Are you still afraid of it?
Yes.
Does that change anything for you? She looked at me for a long time. The lamp across the room. The plant on the sill. Whatever was in that photograph on the wall. Then back at me.
I don't know yet.
I can work with that. We moved to the couch when the table felt too formal for what the evening had become. The dishes cleared. The conversation quieted down to something that didn't need to go anywhere. She was close, her shoulder against mine, her feet pulled up beside her. At some point she said it quietly, almost to herself.
What are we doing, Marcus?
I didn't offer her a theory, didn't map it or name it or give it edges. I lifted my arm and put it around her, and she leaned in without resistance, her weight settling against my side, her shoulder dropping, the full length of her relaxing in a way that said she'd been holding something for a long time and had just put it down. We're figuring it out. She didn't say anything else. The buildings settled somewhere below us, that deep sound old buildings make, wood and plaster and decades of people living inside them. The city outside was doing its late thing. The lamp across the room made the whole apartment warm and small, and exactly enough. I looked at the photograph on the wall from where I was sitting. A coastline. Somewhere I didn't know. I decided I'd ask her about it. Not tonight. Some other night, when there were enough of them that one could hold a question like that without it meaning too much. She breathed slowly beside me. I didn't move.